This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze, your journey through life. My guest today is a professional who helps you and me realize that it's not always about our outside that attracts people, but what about what's deep inside of us? And as I just told Catherine, probably for the first 50 years of my life, I wanted to look like everybody else who I thought was making the achievements in life. Never thought about what was coming from my inside out. When I realized that it was more about who I was internally that was attracting people, what a change it made for my life. However, I still like to get up in the morning and fix my hair, put on my makeup, and get dressed. Um, But there are some days that even when you do that, you look in the mirror and you say, where's the makeup? What's wrong with your hair?
Mm.
So, Catherine, take us on your journey. How did you get into this field of being able to help individuals, you know, bring it out from the inside out?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I have a deep empathy for what you've just described. And I actually got into this business. It was a complete fluke, a total spiritual download. I was not expecting it. But what was happening for me at the time was that I was in two careers that I didn't really enjoy. So when I left university 100 years ago, I was doing singing. I was singing in the opera and teaching elementary school music, K to
Wow.
4. So both of those careers are great, but both of them are they have very narrow parameters. They're quite small box careers. And I am not a small box person, but I didn't know that. And it took me 12 years and a lung tumor to figure out that that's not where I should be. So when I was diagnosed, I went on medical leave and then I started to work with a coach and was doing some other, trying to find a different career option and doing some exploration. And I was literally sitting across the desk from him and he asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up, little lady? He was kind of an alpha male. Anyway, today I'd look at him and go, you're fired. Don't speak to me like that. But back then, I was young. I thought it was funny. And I laughed and I literally had this vision. Now, I don't know if you're a visual thinker. I don't know if the listeners are visual thinkers, but I am. But this had never happened to me before and it has never happened since. But I had this exact vision of my first company name that I ever used and the first tagline I ever used. And it was image consulting. And I started to laugh. I thought, that's not even a real job. Like, who does that job? And he said, it's a real job. You could do that job. And because the industry has no regulation, like you could literally hang your shingle out tomorrow as an image consultant and nobody would blink. Like it's completely unregulated. I thought, well, I look all right. I've read some books. I'll just get a website and some business cards and start practicing. So that's what I did.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
I don't recommend that approach to anybody, knowing what I know now. Like, please get some training. Please get some training before you start doing that. And so so 6 months later, basically the tumor was gone and I had a job doing corporate training at PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is one of the big professional services firms in the world. And I built my practice around the sides of that. And in the recession in 2009, I was divinely ejected from that position. And I thought, okay, now's a great time to jump in. And my husband told me a few years ago, he said, yeah, when you said you were starting an image consulting business in the recession, I thought you were crazy, but I didn't say anything. Good.
Well,
Yeah. So I started practicing. And then when I went full time, then I went and got my training. So I got my certifications in image and advanced image consulting from the International Image Institute here in Ontario, Canada. And then I got my international designation with our professional association, which is the Association of Image Consultants International. And as my clients worked their way up the chain in their corporate world, they said to me, we want you to come and work with our executive teams, but we're tired of explaining to the people that write the checks that you're not really an image consultant. You're doing much more than that.
right.
And so then I was like, great. So I changed my business to Lazaruk Consulting, and now I can do what I like. I'm not limited by a label of any kind except my name.
I love.
And yeah, got my coaching certifications, and now I do corporate work and individual high level coaching.
Well, and I you say that you don't recommend that people can just jump in and then go back and get the training, but many of us, many of us
We
have.
do. We
Um,
do.
I remember back in the early 90s, my husband had been working for Microsoft at the time. He
Right.
was it sort of an independent consultant for them. We weren't in Washington, we were here in Ohio, and things were going great.
Right.
And he had a female boss who decided that, yeah, she wasn't so sure she liked him anymore. And
Oh,
next thing we knew, he was out of work. And
right.
but he had 3 years of clients here in Ohio.
Right.
And he just said to me one day, we're starting a consulting firm. And I looked at
Yeah.
him and I said, really, we? And he goes, yeah, you can learn to train on the programs that I write.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, why not? And
Let's
we
do it.
jumped in. Neither one of us had he had some Microsoft certifications, but he had
Sure.
never written code. And it was
Right.
he was just going to do it. Now,
Great.
if you want to do something badly enough, you can
Yes.
do it.
100%. The only reason that I say I don't recommend the approach that I took is because when you start getting into someone's closet and you start talking to them about their personal image, that is a very
Right.
intimate, very high trust vocation. And if you have no training, like if you have an eye, but you don't have the training about how to work with someone else on that and how to draw out their attributes and what they like, you can cause some damage
Right.
with judgment. And that's been that when I was training consultants on how to be consultants at a college here in Vancouver, that's the trickiest thing for people who do this work to unpack. It's like you need to take your personal bias out of the equation and look at the person in front of you and be able to look at what looks good on them, even though you may not wear that or you don't love the style. If the style's great for them, it's great for them, and you need to back off.
It's interesting that you say that because I was working, doing some coaching with a styling consultant. Uh,
Mhm.
she wanted to make some changes in her personal life. And so we were working together. And on one session, she said to me, I wouldn't wear my hair the way you're wearing yours. It's like blatant. And I'm like, okay. I said, so tell me how you would wear it. And she said, oh, you should have short hair and the whole bit. And I said, well,
Wow.
I had hair for a long time because my
Yeah.
mother wanted me to have short hair. I have
Right.
a husband who likes long hair. I said,
Mhm.
I like medium.
Yeah.
And my hair is naturally curly. I could
Right.
spend hours straightening it, which I've
Oh,
done.
yes.
That's not who I am. And I said, so this is who I am. This is
Mhm.
my image. I said, but if you don't like it, that's okay.
Mhm.
But is it for you to tell me?
Right.
And she goes, well, yes, and let's talk about what you wear. And it
Oh
was
my
like, oh
gosh.
my gosh. And I said, I'm coaching you. I'm not being judgmental. If you
Yes.
tell me that you want to, walk across that road as the traffic is coming towards you, and that's what you really want to do,
Mhm.
I might tell you about some of the dangers,
Yeah,
but I can't tell you not to do it
that's
because
right.
you have a choice. So I love what you're saying that to coach, to help somebody,
Mhm.
we may have our own style and way of doing it.
Yes.
But we have to step into their shoes and understand
Right.
their style.
That's right. And also, like, you don't know why someone is doing what they're doing. And frankly, if they haven't asked, it's none of your business whether you have expertise in something or not. It's none of your business. So yeah, I do hear. I'm sorry that that happened to you, and I have heard many stories of stylists doing the same to other people. And
And
it's rude.
well, and I remember growing up, my mother used to go to this one dress shop,
Mhm.
and that's when we actually had dress shops, and people,
Yeah,
you
I
know, brought
remember.
you clothes into the dressing room and you tried them on. And I
Yeah.
remember a number of times, them saying, it's a pretty dress, but let's try something different for you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's how I grew up. I would
Mhm.
never tell anybody that, you know, that shirt you're wearing is really ugly. What
Right.
I'd say is, you might look nicer in a blue shirt than a red shirt, but hey,
Right.
it's your choice.
Well,
Um,
it's funny because I admit that I'm quite blunt. I was just on a shopping trip last week with a client, and she would come out with something that we thought would work, and it clearly wasn't working. And I will go, no, take that off. That is not your pair of pants. She would laugh, and because also what I want to teach my clients is a clear no is as good as a clear yes. And if there's that wiggle room in between, then if there's doubt, there's no doubt, right? Say no. It's okay to say no. This doesn't fit me. This doesn't work for me. This is not my style. I'm not going to wear this. Great. Then let's find something that will work. And sometimes it's a case of alteration. Like I'll look at a client and say, okay, here's where we can take the volume out a little bit or take the hem a bit, and that will change the look of this for you. And then they're like, oh, okay, I can do that. That's great. But sometimes things just don't work. And it's never you. It's always the clothes, never you. And men don't seem to have this problem. Like women go into a change room and they'll put something on and it doesn't look good and they immediately begin to judge their body.
yes.
And I'm like, no, 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 no. Men go in and put on a pair of pants and they're like, oh, this is the wrong pair of pants. And they get a different pair of pants.
No.
So I really try to emphasize, particularly with women, that it's never you, it's always the clothes. Clothes don't look good. That's the clothes' fault, not your fault.
Well, and I sort of agree with you because
Mm-hmm.
there are some days that I can put something on
Mm-hmm.
and it looks very good on me.
Right.
But the next day I can put it on
Yes.
and either I'm just not feeling it,
Yeah.
or maybe I have extra water weight or whatever, and it's just
Whatever.
not hanging on me properly.
Mm-hmm.
I have a shirt that I absolutely love to wear. The other day I put it on and it just didn't look right.
Yeah.
And I kept looking in the mirror going, but I just wore this 3 days
Yeah.
ago.
Great. Looked great the other day.
Yeah. And
Today
so
doesn't look great.
I had to convince myself, don't wear it today because you're
Yeah.
going to end up hating it. Okay.
Right.
I put it in the closet. Sort of put it a little further back so that I don't go grab at it again right away.
Right.
The next thing I put on, I felt wonderful.
Right.
So I,
Right.
I love that it's not you, it's the clothes.
The clothes. Yeah. And it's interesting because women are get a bad rap for being unpredictable, but women are incredibly predictable on a lunar cycle. So I'm doing some work right now with a woman named Kate Northrup in one of her programs that I really enjoy. And she talks about how the world is designed for men on a 24-hour cycle because their hormones run on a 24-hour cycle. So they literally can do the same thing, the same way, the same time every day and feel great. Women can't do that because women cycle through either if you're not fully cycling, like if you're like me and you're perimenopausal and you're not cycling the same way, the moon is predictable and our energy shifts with that cycle, just like nature.
Right.
So it makes complete sense. Like if there's any of your listeners out there wondering why they feel great in something one day and then don't feel great in it the next day, it's because your body is changing and your mood is changing. And closer to your cycle, you're probably going to feel like wearing something that's cozier, or your sensor, like your skin will be more sensitive. So something might feel scratchier closer to your cycle. And we have to take all of these factors into account when we're thinking about what's going to make us look as good as we are, and be gentle. You're like, oh, I don't feel this today. Okay, you don't feel it. Take it off. Do something different. Just like you said, that's exactly what we need to do is pay more attention to what our bodies are telling us.
Well, and my husband always laughs when we go away for a weekend.
Yeah,
That I have this image, I know what I want to wear all weekend, but
right.
I'll take two or three extra sets of clothes. And
Just
he'll
in
say,
case.
and and he'll say to me, why is your suitcase so much heavier than mine? You know, I have two pairs of jeans and three shirts for the weekend.
Right.
And it's exactly like you say that if I'm not realizing where I am and how I'm feeling, it's like,
Hmm.
I really think I want to wear that blue outfit this weekend.
Hmm.
But what if I go to put it on and
Right.
I need to wear brown today? So
Yeah.
he constantly is, teasing me about it. But he says he does notice a difference if I put something on and go, I'm just not feeling it, and I
Yeah.
throw it off and change, he'll go, oh, you're happier now.
Right.
And I never
Yes.
really connected it to that, but I'm now glad that I understand that. Uh,
Absolutely.
so, but when clients come to you,
Yeah.
are they coming to you because they want to look better for other people, or are they coming to you because they want to look better for themselves?
It's interesting because many of my clients come to me now because they feel stuck. Either they're getting passed over for promotions or they're not getting the recognition or validation that they would like to get at their companies. They're not being valued or they feel like they're not being valued at the company. So a lot of the people that I talk to now, it is work related when they come to see me. And some people it's just personal, but for a lot of people it's work related. And it could be someone who is close to retirement and wants to look good, but also recognizes they're close to retirement and they don't need to put in the same level of effort or don't want to put in the same level of effort that they used to. And I have some young people who are doing well and want to be more refined. They want to do better. And so it's a combination, and it always is. So when I think about the work that I do, there's three main components. I call them the three C's. The first part is character, which is just what we were talking about. Who are you on the inside? Who are you when nobody's looking? What's the container you arrived here on the planet in? Because my belief is it's the perfect container to do whatever you're meant to do on the planet. And the sooner you make friends with your container, the easier your life is going to roll. So it's all about the internal. Who am I as a person? Then the second C that I work with is congruence, which is taking into account the external world. So what industry do I work in? What city do I live in? What's the culture around me? What's my family told me over the years? What do my friends say? What's my lifestyle like? What's my personality like? And how does that overlap with the external world? Because we don't live in a vacuum.
Right.
People have expectations. There's a ton of data on what happens when your insides and outsides match, because people like to make sense of things. And so when you show up and you look like what you say you are, it's
Right.
just easier for people to get to know you faster. And it's easier for you because then you don't have to spend a bunch of time explaining why you do what you do or why you look the way you look. Just it makes life easier. So we have character in the beginning, congruence, and then the last element is choice, because you can exert a stunning amount of control over what you put on your body, how you speak, how you show up in the world, your attitude. You can exert a lot of control over that, but you get to choose and say, how much do I want to meet those external expectations? How much do I want to go with my internal self? Where do I want to find the balance between those two things? And this work can be really useful because sometimes I have had clients go through our work together and go, oh my God, I'm in the wrong field or I'm in the wrong job. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Right. And if you're very different at work than you are elsewhere, you're lying to yourself somewhere, not on purpose, but there's some incongruence there. There's some piece of your soul that's not being listened to. Either your parents told you needed to do something. That's why I was in teaching for so long. Or you have this internal drive to like, I really think I should be a lawyer, but you really don't like the law or you don't like the environment you're practicing it in. All of this kind of image work, even though people say image is superficial, I disagree. I think the image is the surface reflection of who we are, but it is not superficial. It has to reflect the depth of who you are as a person. And it can be a really powerful vehicle for discovering your path and helping you glide easily along it.
Well, it's interesting. Before I left corporate America, I was working for a private college.
Mhm.
And I was in missions rep, and I would coach the students who came in. I did not do it the way we were supposed to because
Right.
I found everybody came in and said, I want to be a nurse. And
Right.
why do you want to be a nurse? Because I like helping people. And I would turn around and say, well, I'm helping people. I'm not a nurse. Um,
Right.
and I didn't bring in as many students as college wanted me to because I found there were students who came in not understanding the difference between a private for profit college and a
Hmm.
nonprofit. And when we would talk about the expense and the fact that you're going for this degree, but you're not even sure you really want it. And so I did it for 10 years, but I loved what I was doing because I was helping individuals.
Right.
But at about the 10-year mark, the school said to me, you can't keep doing this. And I kept saying, but the students I'm enrolling, they're
Yes,
staying in.
that's right. You have a
They're
high retention rate.
right.
Yeah.
My coworkers bringing students in, and after 2 weeks, they're dropping out, but they still owe the money because they took out loans. I said, I
Yeah.
don't want that to happen.
No.
So at 10 years, as they're walking me out the door, basically, one of my
Right.
coworkers said to me, Karen, you really didn't fit in. And I said, well, how didn't I fit in? Well, you tried to dress like us, but you're so much older. Now, I wasn't trying to dress like them. I was dressing truly for myself.
Okay.
And I looked at her and I said, really?
Oh,
I'm
dear.
dressing like you? I said, you should go with me to the store and see what I'm attracted to. I said,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, I don't want to wear something that signifies that I'm old because I'll feel old. I won't feel I can do my job.
Right.
I'd like to feel youthful. And she
Hmm.
goes, well, that's why you don't fit in. And it turned to me, it wasn't that I didn't fit in. I didn't like the culture.
Yeah.
And so I chose, with a little bit of a push out the door, that I was
Right.
done.
Yeah.
And that's when I moved into what I'm doing now
Mhm.
because I realized I had to be authentic.
Yeah.
And I hadn't
100%.
been hadn't been allowed to do that.
Yeah. Ow.
Growing up in the 50s and 60s, you fit a mold, you
Yeah.
get married, you do certain things, you get certain jobs, you listen to the boss.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what so many of us now between the ages of 45 and 80 are saying, where's my life now? Who
Yeah.
am I?
What do I want now? It's interesting because in my experience, the that's common, and I don't know if that's just because I attract people who want to be authentic because that's what I'm doing, which is entirely possible. Of course, that makes sense. But in my experience, I find clients that I work with that are in their 30s, they're kind of uncertain. They're a little bit like they're super high achievers materially, like outwardly. They're like the top 40 under 40. They're, doing all these amazing community things. They're really high powered, but internally, they don't really feel settled
Yep.
in that. Like they give too much, they work too hard. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. Then when I reach clients in their 40s, 40 is kind of the time for women in particular where 40 is like, you know what, whatever. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to be like who I am. I'm going to do what I want and I'm going to move forward. So 40 to 50 is generally a great time for women to claim their power back. But by the time women hit 50, 50 is like, get out of my way. I'm doing it. Like there's a lot less care about what other people think once women hit 50. And it's a great time. And actually, 50 to 70 are the most productive decades for women because if they've had children, the children are generally older and don't need as much care. Women generally have more economic power at this age range, and they have less concern about others. They can now focus on what they want for themselves. So when I sometimes hear women saying, "Oh, well, I'm too old for that," I'm like, "No way." 50 to 70 is where it's at. And then even there are women that I've worked with that are 70 and older that are really living. Like they are into it. And I love that the world is moving to this more authentic place, because what I notice is now the executive presence world, quote unquote, professional presence world, is catching up to what I've been saying for the last 15 years of my practice, which is you have to be you. And then you find the environment that suits you. You find the work that suits you. And it's tough. Like some of my old school leaders now, the whole leadership model is shifted under them. Like
Right.
previously, as you were saying, leadership was hierarchical, it was authoritative, and it was compartmentalized. So you could rely on your title and your position for authority to get things done. And you weren't challenged about that. And what came to work stayed at work, and was at home, what was at home stayed at home. It was very separate. And now the leadership model is integrated, relational, and whole. So people are needing to come and see your complete self at work, and they want you to show up as who you are. And yet, there are studies showing that if you disclose too much, like where's the line between too much information and the right amount of information?
Right.
So what do I share? So now my clients are coming who were successful in this system, like they're old school leaders, and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to wear. I don't know what to share. I don't know how to show up. Like their whole foundation has been shaken. And I really feel for them, because they're just experiencing a lot of cognitive dissonance now. They're getting a lot of pushback. They're getting, younger generations who are saying, well, I don't want to work. They're saying they don't want to work. And I'm
Right.
like, no, they don't want to work for you, because you are not recognizing that the paradigm is different. And you want them to come play in your sandbox, but you don't want to adjust the sandbox at all. And that's not how it works anymore. They're going to go. They
Yeah.
have other options. So this authenticity piece is huge. Like, and the sooner someone can figure out more about who they are, the better it is for them. And the better it is for the world too, because you really don't want people in your workplace that don't like it, that don't fit in, that don't jive with the culture. It's not good for your business.
Well, it's interesting because I have two adult sons. One is almost 50, one
Mhm.
is 34,
Mhm.
both in totally separate fields.
Right.
Okay. Um, and when they both went into their fields, they had a vision
Mhm.
of who they had to be.
Right.
But now I've seen how that has totally changed for the two of them. Um,
Mhm.
you know, it's not like they don't work within the corporate model that they're in,
Yep.
but they're not afraid of saying, hey, this doesn't work for me. You know,
Right.
this is what I would like to do.
Mhm.
Whereas when I was working at the college, when I
Yeah,
tried to say that, it was like, there's the door. You're
exactly.
probably getting too old to work here. And it was like,
Right. And it's also
but
different from men and women too. Men do have more latitude to push back than women have historically been allowed. And the one thing that I find really interesting too is I come across some young people who want to be executives, and they push and they don't understand the nuance of how to ask for something
right,
in a way that this person who's been there for 1,000 years can actually hear. And it's this beautiful dance, this nice balance between, okay, we understand we're in a system. We understand the system works this way. We would like to change the system. And how can we do that in a way that's actually effective? Because definitely there is a part of me that's fully burn it all down. Like, definitely have burn it all down moments. And I'm quite sure that there are people listening that have also had the same burn it all down moments. The reality is that people say, oh, society, that's just the way it is. This is society. Society works this way. And I'm like, well, what do you think society is made up of? It's us. Like, there's no one coming to save us. It's us.
yeah.
So then it becomes this understanding of, okay, what can I do personally? What's going to work, and what needs to be done by the collective? Because I
Absolutely.
also think that society's gone a little far in the individualistic to the individualistic side of the spectrum,
Right.
and has forgotten that it's actually really useful to have some us in there, not just I, but also the we. And we have social contracts with one another on how we want our society to work. So if we don't like it, we have an opportunity to get together with other people and actually change what's happening, so that we don't end up with a world that we don't enjoy or that doesn't work for everybody.
Well, and I think the last 4 years since the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
has totally changed many of us from accepting that corporate structure to
Mhm.
saying, well, hey, look what I can do on my own. And
Yeah.
some of us can work on our own,
Mhm.
but we really aren't totally working on our own. I've had somebody say to me, well, look at you, Karen, you work on your own. Well, I do. But in order to
Yeah.
have a successful podcast, I have to have guests. I have to work with the guests. These are the things that I do. The same
Yeah.
thing when I'm coaching. Okay. So I'm not working 100% alone.
Yeah.
Do I have some choices I can make since it's my business? Absolutely. But if
Mhm.
I don't look at what's going on around me, I could lose what I have. So the
Right.
other corporate models that are going on around me, the other podcasts, the other coaches, you know what? I've got to keep up with them if I want to keep growing. So when people say, "Oh, it's so must be so great you can go to work in your pajamas." Well, you know what? I don't go to work in my pajamas. Okay. In fact, I tried it once and I had the camera wrong and it was like, oh my God.
So you were in your pajamas.
Yeah,
I actually love how the pandemic was terrible, and I don't think we've ever really fully. We're probably not going to process the trauma fully. It's in our DNA now, unfortunately, because that's not what we do in our society. We don't talk, we don't trust, we don't feel. Right? Even though some of us are working to change that. But what I do love about the pandemic is how it humanized everybody.
yeah,
It humanized us. We got to see people's houses. We got to see people's dogs. We got to see people go, you know what? I don't have it in me today. And it's ridiculous to wear a suit to come to this meeting
right,
when I'm not leaving the house. And that I think has really accelerated this fracture in the corporate model. And people are not willing to burn themselves out. They're not willing to toe the line in the same way when they see something is not right. There is this nice sensation coming up now of people going, hey, wait a second, this is not working for people. And we need to be able to adapt those corporate containers to accommodate for people that like to work on their own asynchronously, to for people that like to work together. Because I know for me, I do well sometimes on my own, but I do quite well co-working with people.
right.
So, for example, for one of my marketing initiatives for LinkedIn, I have a co-working group. So we get together on Tuesdays. The person who's leading the program provides some prompts for writing, and away we go. And then we all post, and then we all come back the next week and say, "Hey, how did that go?" And that feels really, really good for me. I like a little bit of that. We're all in it together. And so,
Right.
in the work that I'm doing, because it's helping people to become more alive and aware and be more present in the world, the work that you're doing is the same. We're all on the transition team.
Right.
So anybody out there who's listening who feels like they're a little bit alone, they're like, oh my gosh, like the world is so not working very well and I want it to work better. You're just part of the transition team. So you're on the front edge of the wedge. It's going to be a little bumpy. That's okay. We're all in it together. You're not alone.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, how can my listeners find you and learn more about you and maybe take you up on your expertise?
Well, I'm easy to find. There's not very many Katherine Lazaruks around. So if you Google my name, I'm there. But I hang out on Instagram and I post regularly there 5 days a week. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And if you would like to come see my website, it's lzrkconsulting.com or lzrkconsulting.com for my American friends.
Yeah.
And my book is out on Amazon. So if you want to look me up, I finally got a print copy of it.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
Executive being
Yeah.
wonderful.
Executive being humanizing business one leader at a time. So you're welcome to look that up.
Well, we'll have all that in the show notes. So for those of you who are listening and go, hey, I missed out on that, just go back to the show notes. You can always email me at newclevelandradio@gmail.com. I will give you Catherine's information. And I want to thank you for getting up so early in the morning to be with us.
You're
Um,
welcome.
the one thing I have to say about Podmatch is that most of us don't put in there where we're from.
Mhm.
When we don't do that and we're inviting guests to come on, well, hey, it's Eastern Standard Time, and people
Yeah.
sometimes will, write me back and go, do you know that I'm in England and what that means for me? Or I'm in Australia. And it's like, No, tell me all about it. So
Yeah, it's like make your choice. I could choose not to do a podcast interview before 10 a.m., but I liked your show and I'm like, this is the time, so I'll get up to do it.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you very much. And I love your necklace. I have not been able to stop staring at that today.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
I know.